Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Keys. Super excited to get into today's topic, all about getting an executive sponsor. And I have some amazing guests from my team this week to join in. So we'll be chatting a bit about that. Before we get started, though, I'm going to shout out it's International Women's Day tomorrow. So I'm wearing my classic branded Females Future jumper, which is a classic people know me for. These two look so professional, and I'm just in a sweater. So these guys are rocking it. But throughout today's episode, we're going to be referencing some of that. So we're going to have a question out today, which is International Women's Day is tomorrow. So what is your choice of film to watch on International Women's Day? Drop that in the comments, and we'll highlight some of those. And if you're watching us on YouTube, add them in the comments there. Share the love for International Women's Day and let us know what you're watching. Gabby, what would you watch on International Women's Day? What would be your choice?
Oh my goodness, I'm searching for a good one. You've got to come back to me.
Okay, Haley, any shout outs?
Yeah, I'm debating between two now. One, because I'm really into fashion. I really like The Devil Wears Prada. But I also really love Hidden Figures, so I can't
Oh,
choose.
that was going to be mine. I love that film. That's so good.
Sorry.
Gabby, I'll come back to you later on in the episode and we can dive in. The two that have already been shouted in the comments: Bridget Jones' Diary, classic. Love the UK rep. And First Wives Club from Alex. I watched this for the first time like a month ago and very much enjoyed it. Shout out. Always love a good film reference. So thank you for those. Okay, let's get into it. So, welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior optimization architect advocate here helping you with all your cloud financial management questions, optimization journey, and FinOps journey as well, all the fun stuff. And today, like I said, we are going to be talking about getting an executive sponsor for FinOps, which is a hot topic with many of our customers. And we wanted to share from experts how you can do that as well. So I'm going to introduce my guest now. So, Gabby, do you want to go first and give us your 1 minute origin story?
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Gabrielle Stewart, and I'm here from the AWS Optimization Intelligence for Cloud Systems team, also known as Optics. We're a team dedicated to maximizing the value our customers receive on the AWS cloud through cloud efficiency and cost optimization best practices. I'm the FinOps Success Manager for the Healthcare and Life Sciences vertical, and I'm really excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you. And Haley, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, hi everyone. Nice meeting everybody. My name's Haley Kozak. I work very closely with Gabby, also on the optics team, supporting healthcare and life science customers. Um, and my title is FinOps Commercial Architect.
Awesome. And I'm super excited to have these guys on. We have discussed a blog. Now, the blog is coming out. It will be in the description as soon as it is, and we'll be highlighting on all the socials as soon as we get it published. It is this close to being published, and so then we'll share that. As a note, follow us on Keys to AWS Optimization is too long on all your classic social media, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram to keep up to date with everything. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or want to just tell us what you think of the show, email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. One thing before we start, I just want to clarify Haley's background is not AI. We were talking about this before. Her gorgeous background is real. So, anybody, if you're asking yourself that question, that is her actual house. It is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so getting into executive sponsorship. So maybe I'll ask this question directly. Gabby, why don't you go first? Why do we need this? What is the reason customers should be seeking out an executive sponsor?
Yeah, so the executive sponsor is really just the glue that holds everything together. We need an executive sponsor to be the bridge between all the units, engineering, IT, business, and finance, and break down any silos, and also just make sure that we can get everything done. Haley and I will talk about this, but we've definitely seen both sides where customers really hit a brick wall without an executive sponsor. And so they're really that line in the sand between a successful and long lasting initiative and one that may have some success, but ultimately will fizzle out.
Mm. And Haley, any other kind of like you mentioned stories of or Gab mentioned stories of when you haven't had an executive sponsor. How have you seen that recently kind of affect the productivity of a team?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple really good examples on that. On Staff Show, we talk about, FinHack, which is the event that we, optics team support our customers. It could be one day, could be multi-day events, and half day could be educational. The other half could be hands-on practice to deep dive into our cost optimization journey. Regarding FinHack, last year I was lucky enough to host a couple with our HCLS customers, and I have noticed a difference between the ones that have an executive sponsor and the ones who don't really have executive sponsor, right? And really, when you look at the differences, it's about the planning phase, right? They're more engagement, they're more participants. The one that have executive sponsor, they plan a long time ahead, right? They invited the executive
Mm.
sponsor to come in to do a talk, and they talk about how important the FinHack or FinOps is for their organization, right? How important is adopting that FinOps mindset, and also it just had more participation from the numbers of people that joined the event, right? Also, when you looking at the engagement level, it's very different. Also, the results, the savings in the end of the day, right? You see the one that with executive sponsor, they might be more fast paced and they also have the result in the end of the day. And the one that without executive sponsor, you might see the savings a little bit less than the ones with the executive sponsor. And also for engagement point of view, it's a little bit lacking. Normally, we encourage customers to go on this in-person FinHack event. We do see more of a hybrid of people from all over the place to join a FinHack without an executive sponsor. So
Mhm.
I would definitely say it's a huge difference.
I love that. So it's like you also get more savings, you're getting more engagement, and it has more structure overall. It sounds like a triple win. And I just want to show this little picture of Haley and I in some very cool t-shirts you might recognize from the show, which is us in Singapore last year doing a FinHack in our right sizing shirts. Great time. Loved doing that. Had a great experience there. So that was really good
Yes.
fun. So let's get into how you actually get this executive sponsor. So the guys have come up with three ways in which, or key three stages in getting an executive sponsor. So the first one is how to select the executive sponsor for your company. So Gabby, why don't you go first about how people should actually find this person?
Yeah, so locking down the executive sponsor, I think the first thing that you have to really think about is, who has the right influence to remove the barriers that you'll need to have that long-lasting success? And what do they care about? And so looking
Mhm.
for alignment between what their goals are and what your goals are, right? And then finding a way to really spark their interest in the initiative. And it really starts with telling a good story and it ends with telling a good story as well. And so, first, you need to make sure that you're talking about something that they care about. And most executive sponsors will perk up when you're talking about, cost efficiency and saving money and making that money stretch and being able to do more with it. So,
Mhm.
making sure that you can reel them in with that and then explain to them how their success can be impacted by your initiative. They'll help you knock down all the barriers so that you can have a really successful initiative.
I love that idea of like having someone who could knock down the barriers because I, from experience, and maybe Haley, you can touch on this because you've done FinOps in a company as well. Is sometimes when you're running a FinOps team, you do feel like there are all these barriers that you're trying to deal with, and you're kind of butting heads with other teams, and we need this kind of top-down approach. Otherwise, you're constantly fighting a losing battle. So, Haley, when you were a customer, did you have experience kind of like with choosing a sponsor, or was it something you wish you'd done more of even?
I actually have a really good example with a company that, the central FinOps team came to us. They do have some barriers, right? They might not, they're sort of having a hard time engaging other business groups within the company to engage with proactive cost optimization. And a really good thing is they actually have the executive sponsor, right? Their CIO was prioritizing cost optimization last year, and there are some executive meetings, and what came out of it is a follow-up. They want to do a cost optimization assessment readout. So what we did is we partnered with the account team and we helped the customer to do a cloud financial management capability assessment. And through that assessment, because we have the executive sponsor, we are able to engage multiple stakeholders throughout multiple business organizations. And then we're able to do the interview for them as well as the central FinOps team. And there we can see, what is the gap between those two groups, and we'll be able to provide recommendations to them, so that right now we're working with the central FinOps team to push on the recommendations that we found out, and also we're trying to build a FinOps campaign for that customer. So I think just have that exact sponsor is crucial.
Yeah, yeah. The campaign's always great to help drive that across it. Awesome. So before we go on to our second key stage, let me just go to the chat. People are totally agreeing with having this. So executive sponsorship to really prioritize key initiatives. Great. It's really helped push initiatives. Everyone's loving the initiatives. So I guess if you're thinking I have an initiative, therefore you need an executive sponsor. Another one, exec sponsorship is crucial to moving engineers to take action. Yes, we have been through this many times on the show. If you are getting engineers to take action, having a top-down approach can really encourage it. And we don't mean somebody coming down on engineers. We mean it to set it as a goal, because if it's not a priority in the business, why would they do it? Somebody else showcasing, I have a one-on-one cadence with 4 layers of management. Someone's just showing off now. So committed to it all. I love this. And also one last person, I want to go to Singapore. You should. It was amazing. We had a good time. Haley and I can vouch for it. So if you are just joining us, then we are talking all about executive sponsorship and why it is important and how you can get one for your FinOps team. Also, it is International Women's Day tomorrow. So throughout the episode, shout out your film choices that you would suggest for International Women's Day that you will be watching. Okay, so on to our second point. So you have found the person, you've seeked out your executive sponsorship, kind of got your eyes on a target. How do you actually gain their support? What kind of conversations or things should you be having with them to do this? Haley, why don't you kick us off with that?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's like Gabby said, right in the beginning, when you select an executive sponsor, you have to select someone who cares about FinOps, right? And once you find that person who cares about FinOps, when you approach them, try to make it personal too, right? It can be either personal or professional relationship to get that connection with the executive sponsor that you aim to lock down. And then you have to know, what do they care about, right? Align your proposal with their goals. They care about FinOps, but why do they care about FinOps? Is it from because they control the budget, or is it because they just care about cost optimization, make their organization more efficient, right? And then you have to demonstrate your FinOps program can contribute to their success as well. Um, and then another thing is, when you bring up that proposal, make sure you clearly define the problem, right? You want to showcase the data. What is the cost optimization opportunities that your organization have? And also include the timelines, right? Think about a timeline. How long do you want to finish a project? Is there any success stories already existing from what other business units team has already done? Right? And then also try to quantify the potential ROI or savings that they can expect from this initiative. So I think
Mhm.
those are some important points.
Yeah, Gabby, is there anything kind of specific that you've seen work well with customers when trying to kind of get these execs on board?
Yeah, I think it's precisely what Haley laid out. And you just have to tell a really good story and share the ROI, present the data, and then find a mechanism to track it over time. Explain to them how their participation in the initiative can also help make them successful. And most executive sponsors are going to be all over the opportunity to get more value and to make their initiatives more effective and efficient. And so being able to just tell that good story and being very clear about what you need from them and how that shared responsibility will ultimately contribute to their success.
Yeah,
And then
and it's interesting. Oh, sorry, did I cut someone off?
Nope,
uh,
nope.
uh,
Thank you.
what I was going to say was one thing I think was interesting that you both said was kind of uh, giving them the data, presenting it so it kind of makes sense to them. And an extra layer of that I remember talking to someone at FinOps X about, were shout out FinOps X. See you there, guys. Don't forget to sign up. Love it. Is uh, the way that you describe it in things that they're going to care about, because sometimes when people have these meetings, they get like time with an senior leadership and they need to focus on that and make sure that they provide all the relevant data, all the relevant information, because they're going to try to convince that exec, spend time on my project, spend time on my problem, and like care about it. And one of the things you can do is make it about them. Think about, investigate, what do they care about? What are their challenges? What are their goals? And once you kind of turn that meeting so it focuses on them, I think they're more likely to engage with you because they're going to see the benefit. People are selfish, they want to benefit their careers. And so I feel like I'm being quite blunt. They do, they care about it. And so if you can align to make sure that you're solving their problem or helping them achieve their goals, they're so much more likely to get behind you and support you in yours. Just the something else on the, oh, where's it gone? On the chat. Oh, is that the right one? I've scrolled up. Here we go.
Yeah.
It's not mandated, it's communicating. It's important for management and companies. So communication is key. On a question, or a side note on this, guys, how have you seen customers best communicate with execs? Is it like regular meetings? Is it bringing them in is it just email? Like, what do you think would be a suggestion? Gabby, what do you think would be the best one to
You
kind of
know, I
keep them
think
engaged?
that I think FaceTime is always the best way to communicate. Executives and everyone else all have a lot of emails, and it's easy to misconstrue or overlook information that's emailed. But if you can get a quick 10 to 15 minutes with them on some sort of regular cadence to present data that they care about, I think that's the best way to show the progress, to track the progress, and then to use those data points to later tell the story about what happened there, celebrate those successes, and make sure that they
Mm.
can be applied in other areas of the business. But so much can be lost if you don't have direct communication. So you have to find a way to get in front of them.
Yeah, I think I thought when you said FaceTime, I was like, "You're FaceTiming execs," and then I was like, you mean
No, I
not
mean
the
literal face,
you mean
in
literal."
front. Yeah, exactly. Although, FaceTime is, one way, but I think a meeting in person is the best way to do it. We live in a
Yeah.
virtual world, so whatever app you're using at your organization is a great way as well.
Yeah, that's actually like I agree with you. I just imagine like FaceTiming someone really senior in our organization, like I just on my mobile, like, "Hey, how's it going?" But don't do
Not
that. Well,
recommended as the first step.
yeah. Uh, agree with what Gabby actually meant, which was FaceTime, like sit down with a person, the human interaction. But also as like a side thing, if you're on the phone with someone like that, this is very small. I do recommend going on camera. There's something we talk about sometimes we're talking about speaking in general. It does add that extra kind of human layer. And I mean, everyone always talks about, I mean, we were just about Haley's background. Gabby's got a nice, clean, professional background. I have chaos. That kind of can spark a conversation and can be really nice. So to get onto a human level with your execs is really important too. A great
Yeah,
little
and
segue
seeing
there.
their facial expressions too, so that you know
Yeah.
what's exciting to them or what may be confusing. You won't know
Yeah.
that if you're not looking at someone in their eyes.
Yeah. True.
Yeah,
Okay.
around that.
Back back to our little subtopic, which is International Women's Day. What film would you watch? Does Mad Max Fury Road count? Yes, I think it does. I would count that with some Charlize Theron in there. Otherwise, Kill Bill. Great shout. All these, I'm
Ooh,
loving
good
it.
one.
Also Selena on my watch list. Haven't seen, so I will be adding it to the group. We also mentioned FinOps X. Someone's kindly put the org. I recommend great event. People like us are going to be there, so you can ask questions about this kind of concept. And a couple more experience questions. So brace yourself for a question, guys. From your experience, there are many customers who do chargeback to the sponsor. Oh, are there many? I'm assuming this is like, are there many customers that charge back and give it to the sponsor, or do they kind of keep them out of that conversation? I think this is what this question means. So, Haley, do you often see customers kind of charge back and show that data to exec, or are they keeping them at the high level?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have seen most of our customers show that data back to the executive sponsors, and I would highly recommend them to do the same thing because just to keep your executives in the loop, right, showing them the progress that the company is making, you're making, it's very important, and highlight the achievements, and also don't be shy to address any challenges that you're facing, maybe other business groups are facing, right? Ask for help because a lot of times executives want to help, but they don't know how. They don't know what they need help with. So clearly state what actions that or help that you need from them is very important too.
Mhm. Love that. Um, okay, and then slightly off topic, but always love that. Any automation frameworks to implement in your FinOps improvement? Uh, Fun random question. I'll jump in on the automation. I don't know of any automation frameworks. I think the well architected framework is, if we're focusing on two different words, framework is always going to be helpful when reviewing your infrastructure and gives you some proactive ways to optimize to ensure the configuration is secure and highly available, but as well kind of cost optimized. I think is valuable. In terms of automation, there's a bunch of things out there. I was on a thing with Custodian recently, Cloud Custodian. If you're looking to optimize how things are built and optimize, I would really recommend checking that. Maybe Richard could get the link for Cloud Custodian into the chat for us so we can highlight that. But do you guys have any suggestions for automation frameworks for FinOps? Anything jump to mind? If
I would
not,
say
no worries.
not. Yeah, it's probably not our specialties, but I would say a lot of automation sometimes it can link to the executive sponsor too, right? If you have that executive I guess sponsorship, you'll be able to, I guess your engineering team will link better to the finance team with the business owner, application owner. Because sometimes don't just think about automation by itself, but also think about FinOps as a whole. Think about what's your linkage, what does it align to your business goal, to your business strategy.
Mhm,
So
mhm. Good point. And there's a governance day. That was the one I was on. So go check that out. This has got a good set of talks all about different optimizations. Go on, Gabby. I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, when it comes to FinOps and optimization, there's really no one size fits all approach. And it depends on your unique environment, as well as your organization's culture, their budget structure. And so I think automation has its place in establishing alarms and
Mhm.
tracking data over time. But it's really an ongoing effort that requires someone to go in and refer back over time and really understand the intricacies of what's going on in the environment and make sure that continuously the decisions are being built into the architecture as we're building.
Yeah, I think that great points. Nothing to add. Loving it. And one, Lauren also agrees. At the point, I'm not just highlighting the positive, but also showing the challenges and asking for help. That is a great point. These execs, yes, they are here for you to kind of be like, look at the amazing work. But if you do need help, I think is a really good way to highlight that. And last one on the films. My employer is doing a screening of Mean Girls for International Women's Day. Love this. Follow-up question. Which version? Is it the old one or is it the new musical? I vouch for both. I think they're both great. Okay, which brings us on to our last prompt. So, how can an executive sponsor drive a successful FinOps practice? So, this is going to go into a bit more of your experiences working with customers as yourselves or working as customers. But how have you seen, like, what success stories do you want to share with everybody to inspire them from today? Why don't we go with Gabby?
Yeah, so I think it's really about empowerment, right? And I think the executive sponsor can be the person that establishes new responsibilities and sets expectations, removes those barriers. And then as far as driving, a successful practice long term, being really clear about what the goals are and setting times, expectations, and dates, and then giving their teams something to work backwards from. I think the data can be a great way to empower the teams and share one success story that hopefully can be applied to other business units. And it's really about this collaborative motion so that it can be adopted throughout the organization.
Haley, what about you?
yeah, I totally agree with everything that Gabby said. And to add on top of that, I had a really good example from my previous employer um, who has executive sponsor, right? And they have set up cadences for the application owners to share their defined KPIs. So I'll highly suggest people that trying to get executive sponsor or maybe already had one. If you don't have that KPI review, try to give it a try, right? So what happened with my previous employer is that the executive sponsor kind of gamified it. They're playing a game called Spin the Wheel. So the meeting is short, right? They can't have all the application owner to share their KPIs to share their trend. So what they do is whoever landed on the spin the wheel, they will have to come to the front and share with everybody uh, how is your KPI trending, right? Is it going up? Is it going down? Why? What happened? And one of the cases, one of the meeting that I had I really like is they have their spot usage went up, and you can clearly see how much money they have saved in the past month. So I think that would be a really good use case to showcase all the other application owners. Oh, maybe if you haven't took a look at Spot, try to utilize Spot, right? So definitely set up some KPIs is very important. And I believe there's a KPI blog that our team shared in the past.
Yeah, let me grab the KPI one. The KPIs, which I'll pop on the bottom. Where's it gone? The wheel. I love that. Love a wheel. We've done that on the show before. That is super cool and super engaging. And it also has this idea of like you can't risk, it's like a Russian roulette. You can't risk not preparing, right? You kind of want to do it. And the funny thing, I wonder as well, and I don't know if you saw this, Haley, but like say you had a really good month and you're like, yes, I use Spot, and then you didn't get chosen. Did people kind of want to showcase that optimization some other way? Did they go around and tell people? Did they send messages? Did they feel like they wanted to show off in like another way? So did it drive more sharing stories outside of that environment? Did you notice that at all?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that's another thing, how executive sponsor can drive successful FinOps practice is to create that platform for people to share their success stories, to share their milestones, right, or accomplishment. So I think either creating like a web page, a lot of people use Confluence, um, or maybe they have an internal newsletter that they can send out on a quarterly basis or even monthly basis. Or there's a lot of team meetings, right? Choose the one that have the visibility, especially have the executive sponsor on the meeting is important.
Mhm.
And just to have people share their success stories, that'll help.
Yeah, I love that. I love it, and it gives people like FaceTime. I go back to the FaceTime with the execs, kind of getting them to show off, and I think that's always a great opportunity, so people kind of know their names. And we've actually had a question about KPIs. So, what are some good KPIs you recommend for tracking? I'm aware of time, so why don't we just have one from each of you that you would recommend for this kind of executive sponsor? Gabby, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I think money saved over time and reporting that on a monthly basis is critical. And then not only that, but what are you doing with the money that you've saved? How have you reinvested it or how are you able to reallocate it for other projects?
Nice, Haley.
Yeah, since Gabby mentioned what somehow how we call cloud efficiency metrics, I'll talk about one example for business value metrics. I think it's super important to connect the dollar saved to what matters to your business. So I would say if you're building an application, maybe say money saved per application.
Mhm. Brilliant. That was that was my one. I'll throw one in there. I think obviously we have all the classics, which are like the unit cost that we often talk a lot about on this show, or you might have kind of coverage of utilization. I think having one that focuses on a campaign, so a very specific one, so you can have all the high level ones, the total goals, the kind of coverage. But if, for example, you're focusing on a spot migration, like what is your spot change over time, or if you're doing GP2, GP3, or whatever, because those ones sometimes you can move the needle on very specifically, and you can kind of pinpoint that and go back to what we were saying earlier about showcasing someone's work on that. So if you can say, oh look, this application really focused on making sure that all of their volumes had changed this month and we can see this increase, it really ties it back to people actually working on something, and then can make people feel like they're more involved in doing this overall goal. Some people shouting out the kudos dashboards. Of course, we can't do an episode without shooting out our favorite dashboards. People are using that for KPI. And just in case you're wondering, what are these dashboards? I've not heard of these, which I would be very surprised about. But there's the link to the dashboards. Okay, on to our last bit. So we're just going to get our summary from Richard. So Richard, whenever you're ready, as always, we finish this part of the episode with a summary from Richard, who covers the top 3 highlights of the episode, which I read out without seeing before. So as this loads, as always, it takes a second to load. Which are break barriers, get yourself an executive sponsor. 100% agree. Go out there, find yours today. Help them help you. What a lovely sentiment. Remember, we said we're trying to make sure that you are showing what your goals are, but help them achieve theirs. And get in front of people, celebrate success, and highlight challenges. I love these as always. Okay, that is it for this section. Again, Gabby, Haley, thank you so much for coming on. All the links that we've shared will be below in the YouTube channel, and so will their LinkedIn. So if you want to reach out and get in contact with any of us, you can. Next, we'll be moving on to our cost news digest. So stick around for that. Thanks, and we'll be back in a second.
Welcome to Cost News Digest. Let's dive into the newest AWS cost announcements and releases. AWS announces Amazon Neptune IO Optimized, which is going to provide improved price performance and predictable pricing for all customers with IO intensive applications. It offers up to 40% cost savings, which is amazing.
Amazon SageMaker Feature Store now supports the ability to provision read and write capabilities for online stores. This alternative to on-demand billing mode is designed to be more cost-effective and provide controls for your workloads for predictable throughput requirements.
AWS Billing Conductor releases account-scoped custom line items, which means that customers can now apply custom line items to any account within an AWS Billing Conductor billing group. This is going to allow folks to control the application of fees like support charges and credits with a finer grain of detail for a specific number of accounts.
EC2 auto scaling and EC2 fleet customers who use attribute-based instance types can select a defined spot instance price protection limit as a percentage of the instance compared to on-demand pricing.
AWS Batch now offers multi-container jobs. This feature is going to make it easier and faster for you to run simulations when testing complex systems.
And finally, AWS Fargate for Windows containers on ECS reduces infrastructure pricing by a whole 49%. Fargate simplifies the adoption of modern containers technology for ECS customers by making it easier to run your containers. And that are the headlines.
I always want to dance to the theme song. This is the first time we've done this on keys and not on a recorded version where we're just...
I know.
Multiple takes.
So for those who don't know, that is a show that we normally do, and we are doing today all about diving into the headlines of optimization. It's always going to start with like a news kind of broadcast, and then we're going to dive into some of them and dive into some key themes that we're seeing in the news at the moment. But Savannah, how do we find you? You doing well?
I'm doing well, doing all right. Just enjoying life and doing emails, living the dream as always. How about you, Steph?
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying being here. Love the last chat we had on the other episode. And as a reminder, if you've just joined us, we are talking about tomorrow's International Women's Day. So we're talking all about films that you would like to watch tomorrow on International Women's Day. So drop them in the chat. We've had some great ones. Bridget Jones' Diary. We've had Fury Road. Do you know what? I'm going to shout another one. I'm going to watch The Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. I think that's a great underrated DC film, and not many. I don't really like DC, so that's saying something. So feel free to. Someone's already dropped in Evita. Is that right?
Vita.
Am I saying it right? Avita. I don't know that one.
So.
Add it to the list. Awesome. So we've gone through the headlines, but something we were discussing the other day was that there was a lot of kind of pricing reductions, things around pricing. Do you want to comment on what you've kind of been seeing recently with trends around price stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were kind of pulling together all the announcements in the last month or so to prep for what we're going to read out and like intro on the show, we saw just a absolutely large amount of Graviton releases and a couple price reductions, a lot of new support for more price performant options. So in general, we're seeing a lot of ways to continue to cut costs on AWS and a lot of new releases that will make that happen. And because we're a little bit lighter this month on essentially the headlines to go through, because we don't want to read you out that we've got G's what are they? M7Gs and 20 new regions or something. Yeah, we could.
Let me. I could just do. Let's do fast. I was like, I do fast talking. There's some really good ones like CG instance in Cape Town. We've got managed Kafka but in multiple regions, added relational database for Graviton 3 in multiple regions, open search for Graviton 2 in 6 additional regions. There's new i4Gs, and Elasticache now supports Graviton 3. So there's a lot of like this Graviton releases that there always are. And if you are interested in keeping up to date with news, I just want to highlight our AWS Cost News bot on Twitter. That is how we get all of our information. So if you want to be ahead of the trend, then you can check that out. We've also had a big quick comment from Rob. Windows containers, huh? Still waiting for Windows Lambda. Well, Rob, we all know what you can do when you have a request. Everybody knows this now. You can go into the PFR and you can add yourself a service feature request for doing that. So go and check that out and we request that. Also, if you have any other comments, questions, or want us to add anything to the show, then please fill out the survey below. This down here. Oh, I can't do it. Where is it? It's mirrored. Down here, go on there, scan the QR code and fill out the survey for your ideas of what you want to be seeing on Twitch so we can make sure we're always hearing what you have to say. But we had an idea. When I say we, Savannah had an idea to do some deep dive into pricing. So do you want to explain what we're going to do, and then I will get ready to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of these cost reductions, all this talk of price, and some of the conversations that we had a couple weeks ago about how to think about pricing out an application and really measure that, we're going to give Steph a bit of a pop quiz today. I've decided that we're going to pick a service that she doesn't know very much about, possibly hasn't heard of before. And we're going to kind of use our pricing and cost scoping tips and best practices and the pricing calculator to see how far we can get into understanding exactly kind of what generates charges and what are the levers and dials that you can kind of turn and press to make it a little bit more cost effective. So
yes,
Steph, are you ready? Or do you want to tell us your tips first?
I'll do tips at the end. But if anybody wants to follow along and join us while we use the pricing calculator, the link is in the chat. But let me share my screen and Savannah, explain again, what are we going to be looking at on pricing calculator for me?
Yeah, so we're picking a service that Steph is not familiar with, and we're going to have her price it out and start to get an understanding of kind of what drives cost for the service. So I've decided that we should do Prometheus.
Prometheus. Okay.
Also sometimes called AMP, Amazon Managed Prometheus.
Oh, okay. I have heard of this. Well, I've heard of Prometheus. I know Prometheus. I think we have people on the show talk about Prometheus before. So, but I don't know how it's priced. So if I'm coming into my calculator, the first thing I'm going to think about is my region. So I am based in London. So why don't we do London as my region? So all my pricing is going to be specific to my region. And then we're going to go service by region. So I'm hopefully going to AMP.
Try Prometheus. I'm not sure if it's available in London. Oh no, there it is. I was like, shoot, if I picked one that's not available in London, I'm going to feel really dumb.
Okay, so it gives me a nice description of what Prometheus is and cloud native computing, Project Popular. Okay, let's go configure it. Let's see what pricing elements we have. Okay, so metric ingestion, active or... I mean, we're looking through this now and I'm like, I'm not even sure. So, it shows calculation. So we can have a look at the type for pricing. Why don't I actually open up the
pricing page?
Say someone has asked you to go and figure out how much to spend on Prometheus, how to do an estimate for it. Let's have a look at pricing. So how is it broken down? Let's have a look. Pricing Prometheus counts each metric sample ingested, level ingestion, into Prometheus endpoint. Okay. So if we go down metric ingested, let's change my region. I wonder if it will make a difference. Savannah, yes or no? Will it make a difference to the price? What do you think?
I think a little bit.
A little bit? So we're going from 90. No, it's the same.
No.
It's a surprise.
Awesome.
Okay, going from that, so different metric ingestion. So if I do more, obviously the price goes down. The price goes down by quite a lot when you get to 250 million. And we've got storage and collection hours. Okay, but there is some free tier. Oh, good to know. Love knowing about the free tier. As part of the free tier, you can support receive metric ingestion for 40 million on the free tier. Okay. And sample process 200. Okay, let's have a look then. So
The other thing you can do too, and this is a little bit less relevant for you because I think you're familiar with the service or familiar at least with what Prometheus is I always like to read the overview to get an idea of what specifically it does. Because we know we're ingesting metrics, but what kind of metrics were they coming from? And just reading these like 4 highlights, I feel like usually helps me kind of understand or wrap my brain around like, okay, what is this going to be? What am I actually trying to do with the service? And then when I look at those kind of like dials and knobs and pricing pieces, it makes a little bit more sense.
Chat, has anybody used Prometheus before? Let us know. If you do, what do you use it for? Keep us posted to see if there's any real world examples. So use the filter aggregate ingest millions of queries, automatically scale ingestion, okay, integrates with security services, love, reduce operational costs. We've had someone comment, Prometheus, good Titan, terrible movie. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else we've got. Manage Prometheus, collects ingest monitors. Okay. So we go back to the pricing. Let's configure it. Let's have a look. Let's choose some parameters and see how it affects our calculations. So we can see some of the calculated fields. So this is quite handy. I always like when they do this. So giving you the calculations so that you can figure stuff out when it comes to what is that actually going to impact your total bill. Is always helpful, so you can kind of implement your own knowledge to understand it. So if we have 150,000 average metrics and then 60 seconds and 73 hours, okay, will be this many. All right, so let's give us a price. Let's do all the defaults. Save another service.
I
have to choose
our
something.
little faces, little covering up the estimate of the bottom.
So saving a summary. Okay, it's added. That's my bill. View summary. So at the moment, I spent 384 doing all my defaults, and I can go in. So let's take the single one and duplicate it. See what happens. And let's go and edit it.
I think our video is covering up that like bottom panel of where it reads out at the bottom too. Just so you know.
Oh, okay. I'll just read it out. Thank you. I can probably let's move us to the side. There we go.
There we go.
And I can
modern problems, modern solutions. We love it.
And I zoom in. There we go. Make it a little bit more zoomy. Okay, so I've got my default set up. Let's change this one to let's make some changes. What should we change? So if we were gonna optimize, go on.
So if we're thinking about kind of what we can really scale up and down here, I'm not really sure how big a metric is going to be. So I'm not going to say like we can change the size of the metrics. I think at this stage, if you're just using these things for the first time, it's really hard to estimate that. But there are some kind of easy things that we can look at in here that make a little bit of sense. So there is a retention period. How long are you staying, like keeping these things for? And there is also a collection interval. So how frequently are you pulling these things? So those are kind of the two that jump out at me right away, where I'm like, okay, if I want to reduce the cost of the service, the first things that I'm going to think about are how often I actually need to pull these things. Like, do we really need 60 seconds? Is once every 5 minutes okay? Or possibly we need it a little bit more often than 60 seconds. And then in terms of retention period, are we going to go back and look at this stuff for 150 days? Can we bump it down to 100? Can we keep it for 3 months? Those are the questions that I'd be asking out of the gate in terms of thinking about kind of coming in low on that cost reduced.
Yeah. So let's focus on retention period. So at the gate, it was at 150. You can see immediately 1384, change that to 100. A little change, so not as big of an optimization. Okay, so we know that retention period isn't huge for storage. And then what was the other one?
It should be at the top. It is the frequency of collection interval. There you go, the 60. So 60 seconds.
Let's try 120 and see what happens. Oh, it adds it up. So if you do it, an interval is longer. Oh, it can't be more. Okay, I'm not allowed to do that apparently. So if it was 0, it's 4 to 6. So the collection interval is higher, the more you spend. I can't go over that. 12. What was it? 60.
60.
Oh no, it's just getting okay. This is interesting. All right, so if you do 60, it's 383. Let's do 50. It's more. Okay. Is that the way around we thought it would go?
Oh wait, yeah.
So
you're collecting
more
it more
expensive.
frequently.
Yes. Okay. It was just my mistyping. So summarizing that, changing this to being the interval to being shorter, which makes sense. It'll be more expensive. So if you need it less, but you can only go up to 60. So there you go. So it has to be that kind of frequent. Okay. And what else have we got? Number of rules. I wonder if rules make a big difference. Only a small.
Ooh.
There's still $40 in rules. Okay.
What about your dashboard users per day up there?
Yep. Make a change. There's so the summary of the story. A lot of changes. Everything makes a change. So, which is kind of, this is a good point. Let me take this down for a sec. So that was a fun little exercise in showing how terrible I am at knowing about services I don't know, but also in the fact that when you price something out, you have to know what you're talking about. So this kind of segues us into what I wanted to cover, which was the kind of summary of our what should we call it? Our top tips for using pricing information. So Savannah, before I dive into mine, actually I'll dive into mine and then kind of if we want to discuss any of them, we can. But before we do, any questions, any fun things? I hear you entered Bezos. It gives you a 25% off discount. Oh, I love that. I'll go try that
Quick
now. Thank you for that
hack.
tip.
Not a lot of people know. No.
Can you imagine? That would be brilliant. There was this hidden secret code. Like, I know Jeff. Yeah, we're friends.
Credit code. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He gets some of the money too, obviously. He gets the discount.
It's like an influencer, like partner.
Yeah, I'll have to edit that out. Collab. So, what are our kind of top tips for utilizing the pricing tool? So, like we just
Play around
demoed
with
in
it.
my,
It's mine.
yeah.
It's
That's your
just
top
go
tip.
in there and kind of just like you did, keyboard smash the numbers, see how it changes things, especially if you don't have any context on what the service is being used for. I think that's one of the most helpful ways to kind of immediately see what's going to impact the cost. I also find that it helps me ask more educated questions when you go back to the folks who are asking you for this and say, okay, what are you actually using it for? How long are we going to have to retain these things? Can you talk me through the intention here or what problem this is actually solving? And you can kind of use some of the things that you learned from that pricing exploration and do so.
So number one, have a go and look at the requirements and try different configurations out. But like Savannah said, get familiar with what the pricing things actually mean, because the more time you spend understanding it, and that is also a call to, if you're a FinOps practitioner watching this, maybe you need to go and talk to your engineers and say, okay, what are you actually building? Because if I, as a FinOps person, which I would say I am, tried to use Prometheus just then, and I had no real idea of what I was doing, it meant that the data was going to be wrong. Whatever estimate we just came up with, I was just guessing. So have a go, but also review your kind of your suggestions, speak to other people and get to know what you're supposed to actually be deploying. The second one is I would lead into reviewing the estimate. So like we were just doing, going in there and saying, okay, what have I actually built? How much is it going to cost? And understanding the totals and thinking about that not only on a kind of monthly spend that shows you how will that affect the year, and also how will that affect your forecast. So if you're trying out for a new service, think about what it's going to do to the rest of your bill and kind of take that into consideration is what I would do as the second one. Comparing across regions is the third. We just did that a little bit just to highlight kind of it is different. So I'm going to shout out Frank's episode from 2 weeks ago. Go check that episode out if you haven't. And if you're on the YouTube channel, you can go check that out. And don't forget to subscribe, obviously, on the YouTube channel if you're there. By looking at the different regions, maybe if you don't care about latency, you can go and use a region that is much cheaper. Ironically, in our example, it was the same for London versus America, but make sure you're kind of careful on that. The fourth one is review all your services. So Savannah, maybe you can name one of these after I explain this one. Is I always talk about the others. People forget to price out some of the services. So for example, CloudWatch is a service people don't anticipate. Whenever I used to do calculation, it would be like, yeah, it would be like S3, EC2, RDS done. And you're like, no, there's other stuff. You're going to pay for other stuff. So make sure you're reviewing all your services. So CloudWatch is one. Come on, what's one that you think people forget about?
ELB sometimes I feel like comes up more or comes up in a different way than you would expect. And just in general, any security setup that you're doing is a big one to think about. So if you're adopting guard duty, if you have like any sort of management in the payer account that has a unified service that everything is using, remember to factor that in. And then support as well, support costs. So those are the big ones.
Definitely. And then finally, the last one is optimize. So you saw us doing this in the video, the demo. We were trying out different configurations. Vanna looked and said, well, some of the cost is driven by these two services. How about we change them? So if something is too expensive, try different configurations with your engineers who know what they need, but try different ones and make sure that that is communicated to the architecture or the engineer that is building that service. Because if you price out, it's going to cost one thing, and then they use all the default settings, it's very different. So those are our 5 kind of top tips for using pricing calculator. Any other suggestions or things that you think people should make sure they check when they're doing pricing calculator?
Not necessarily pricing calculator related, but I think with retention periods, if you're using a new service, people index sometimes on just keeping the default and not being really thoughtful about that in the design phase of what they actually need and how long they need to store this stuff. And I know, like you talk about optimizing the others, CloudWatch is the big one that we do a lot of. And a lot of what we do is make sure that we're not storing those things forever, because we likely don't need them forever. So it turns into cleanup that you're going to have to do later if you don't set it up right the first time. So it's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to just be thoughtful about that from the get-go.
Definitely, which is a great transition into next week. We are going to be talking about CloudWatch optimization. We're going to look at some of the announcements from reInvent 2023. Yes, we are still talking about reInvent 2023. We will be probably till reInvent 2024, but that is going to be a really interesting topic. So if you want to optimize your time when it comes to utilizing that tool and potentially optimize your spend, then make sure to check us out next week. It is, do the clocks change in America next week?
Yes, on Sunday.
Okay. So for you guys, it'll be the same. For all of my Europe listeners and watchers, we will be slightly earlier because we follow the US time zone time. So just as a warning, we'll be an hour earlier next week. But as long as you subscribe to the Twitch channel, to the YouTube, to the Spotify, and to all of our socials, then guys, you're never going to miss anything.
Can't miss it.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much for tuning into the episode this week. We hope you enjoyed yourself, and we will see you all next time. Bye.